Good morning, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So in this video, we are going to be talking about how 80% of the people are doomed. And now, of course, if you have been following this channel for any length of time, we have talked a lot about the Cantillon effect and how it is that the ever-increasing amounts of new money pouring into the system is going to cause a separation between the rich and the poor. And there's really no better evidence of that than taking place right now in Bend. Bend, Oregon has this exact scenario happening on an extreme level. Now, of course, this is happening all over the place, and Bend isn't isolated as the only place. There's probably other areas within the nation that are even more extreme than what has taken place within Bend, but it is obvious. In this article coming, I think, out of Oregon Public Broadcasting, um, talks about it, perfectly, right? Here it is. 5% of households make 24% of the city's aggregate income. Just 5% of the people are making 24% of the income in Bend. And now it's causing a situation in which that the workers just simply cannot be there. It says, where was it here? Ben's median household income increased overall, largely driven by households making $100,000 or more. According to the report, the number of households earning $200,000 or more grew by 154%. So the income in Bend is like growing exponentially in the higher income levels, and it's really driving out the people of the working class. Like the working class individual can no longer make it in Bend. It says here, more wealthy people are moving into the community and more less wealthy people are moving out of the community. And now this is totally Cantillon effect. Like, if there was never a better example of new money pouring into the system, causing a separation between the rich and the poor, and then driving the poor people out. Now, of course, a lot of people will call it gentrification, but this is because of the ever-increasing amounts of new money coming in. The population in Bend had grown in the 1990s. It was, I believe, 20,000 people, it says here in the article, and now it's 100,000 people. So if you can imagine 100,000 people who have moved to Bend and the concentration of wealth into the top 5% earning 24% of the income, the average individual is just simply priced out of the game. Rent is now off the charts. The ability for the average income to be able to provide themselves with any kind of place to live is just no longer existing in any kind of realistic manner in Bend. And again, like when you think about the Cantillon effect and how it takes place with the ever increasing amounts of new money pouring in, when we look at places like Bend, they say, okay, what do we do? How do we fix it? What is it that can possibly happen in order to overcome this situation? And ultimately, it's going to take an insane amount of new builds. Let me see here. Housing affordability grows for renters, especially for larger families. According to the city report, almost half of Bend's renters are cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on rent. And though wages have increased, they haven't kept up with the cost of living. So they're not going to make it. There's no way that they can do it with their income. Renters in Bend earn $66,000 per year on average, not enough to comfortably pay for an average apartment or own a home in the city. The city is on track. The city tracked almost 500 affordable housing units built in 2020 to 2025 and a total of 1,260 since 2007. But despite the push to build more affordable housing, little over a little over half of the city's neighborhoods were unaffordable last year. They can't keep up, right? They can't overcome the amount of demand that there has taken place within Bend in order to provide the working class with a place to live. It's just not going to happen. And so when I think about what it is that could possibly, like, everybody says, oh, well, subsidies and, government interventions and all kinds of stuff. In fact, I think they even point to it. It was just like, they talk about subsidies. Hold on one second. Currently, Bend doesn't have enough housing. Costs to build housings are increasing, and many people aren't making enough to rent or buy a home. Says, quote, "We've been in a bad place for a while and we're still just trying to dig out." This is, quoted within the article. Pointing to subsidies and incentives, and called on an area residents to support affordable housing projects and developer incentives in hopes that new home prices stabilize and people need low income housing can afford to stay. So it's just simply they're going to have to force the situation. All right? See, like so many people have moved to Bend with the money, right? They moved, the remote workers going to Bend, popular place to go to. I know a lot of people who talk about Bend. I live not too far away. Well, I live in Oregon, so I guess it is a bit of a drive, but it's in my state that I live in. This is very telling of the situation that we now face, not only in Bend, but in just generally across the entire nation. This is the same story being told on different levels. Now, there are some areas, some pockets of the country that you're going to find where the situation is different, but for the majority of areas across the nation, this is what we are going to experience. This is what's happening here in the developed nations across the globe. Ever increasing amounts of new money pouring into the system make the situation ever increasingly more difficult on the working class individual. This is the separation between the rich and the poor, and why it ends up being two classes: the elite class and everybody else. See, there was a time when you had a rising working class, when we were an industrialized nation producing the world's greatest stuff and sending that stuff out there to the world. We had a strong working class. The world was sending us their gold. We could raise our standard of living. We are no longer in this situation. And when you find cities like Bend who are suffering under the consequences of 5% of the households earning 24% of the income, what do you think is going to happen to the rent? I mean, it's just going to go through the roof. Yeah. If you had the majority of the people there who are earning money at working their industries of the working class style, and not had a bunch of remote workers who are drawing in money from all over the place to bring it into an isolated location where there is a limited amount of residents, if you didn't have that happening, then you wouldn't see the issues that are taking place. But what is it that's doing it? The ever-increasing amounts of new money. So you can find this back in the Cantillon essay. Really, if you just go and read through chapters 6, 7, and 8 in part 2 of that essay, it describes it well. It describes how it is that ever-increasing amounts of new money coming into the system is going to find a direction into more consumption. And when that consumption rises, what ends up happening is the prices start to increase and the problem of the lower income start to really suffer. They find themselves having to leave the area. This isn't new. This is the same story that gets told hundreds of times. And to think that it's something that can be reversed, I find that very difficult to believe. The reversal of the problem would be ultimate consequence for everybody. It would be suffering amongst all. I mean, let's just read from the essay some. I mean, it's pretty telling when you start going through it all. Let me just bring it up here. Chapter 6, right? The increase and decrease of money and the quantity of the state. And this is in part 2 of the essay. It says here, Cantillon uses the price-specie flow mechanism to analyze some of the effects of inflation. Increasing the supply of money by mining hurts some people and benefits others because certain prices and incomes rise faster than others. Now, if you just replace what he is referring to as the mine, because he didn't refer to a central banking system back in the day like we have today, but ultimately the ever-increasing amount of new money coming from a mine, the mining operation, is something that we can now relate to as the central bank, ever-increasing amounts of money coming from the printing press. Right? That new money will hurt some people and benefit others because certain prices and incomes rise faster than others. However, if the new money is accumulated and saved by those who successfully export goods, either because of superior quality or more efficient transportation, it will lead to a higher standard of living. This is exactly what the United States was going through when we became the rising industrial nation that we did. the manufacturing powerhouse, producing all the world's greatest stuff and sending that stuff out there to the world. It was able to give us the ability to import that gold and raise our standard of living. This is what Cantillon was describing hundreds of years before it took place. Why? Because it's an underlying economic force. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. People can call on politics, they can call on all kinds of stuff, but here it is. Cantillon described exactly what it was that the United States was going through hundreds of years ago in literally 3 sentences. Yeah. Let me kind of dive into this a little bit further so we don't have to read through the whole thing. If the increase of money from hard money comes from gold and silver mines within the state, the owner of these mines and the entrepreneurs, the smelters, the refiners, and all the workers will increase their expenses in proportion to their profits. Their households will consume more meat, wine, beer than before. They will become accustomed to wearing better clothes, having finer linens, and having more ornate houses and other desirable goods. Consequently, they will give employment to several artisans who did not have much work before and who, for the same reasons, will increase their expenditures. See how everybody is super happy when the money first pours in? See, all these people who were able to get first access to that money, man, they're super delighted. They're like, hey, look at this, man. All these other people are starting to work. Isn't that awesome? Right? All this increased expenditures on meat, wine, wool, etc., necessarily reduces the share for the other inhabitants. Oh, so all those people who didn't have first access to the money, like all the people who did, all of a sudden are suffering the consequences with higher prices and no wage increases. Huh? Does that sound familiar? Does it? I mean, does it not happen over and over again? So we can blame politics. I mean, go for it. I'm going to read Cantillon's essay and learn the underlying economic forces that are causing it while everybody else is pointing the finger at somebody else. All right? All this increased expenditures on meat, wine, wool, etc. necessarily reduces the share for the other inhabitants in the state who do not participate in the wealth of the mines in question. The bargaining process of the market will demand for meat, wine, and wool, etc., be stronger than usual, will not fail to increase their prices. This is where price increases come from the added consumption. It's not necessarily the new money that's pouring in, it's the new money is now pouring into the purchasing of stuff because people are now increasing their expenditures. Right? Added consumption is doing it. Not everybody gets to participate in added consumption, only the people who have first access to it. Think about 5% of the people earning 24% of the income in Bend. Huh. Wonder what they're doing with their money. Right? Higher prices to live in Bend. Gets hard. Right? Yeah. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this. All right. Who will suffer from these higher prices and increased consumption will be, first of all, this is kind of interesting, the property owners during their times and leases. Their domestic servants and all their workmen on fixed wage earners, those people will suffer, right? Who support their families on the salary. They all must diminish their expenditures proportions to the new consumption, which will compel a large number of them to immigrate and seek a living elsewhere. Did that not sound familiar from what they were saying inside of the article coming out of Bend? How more wealthy people are moving in and less wealthy people are moving out? Huh. Well, here Cantillon described it. All this increased expenditures, right? All of a sudden, it started causing a problem when the prices moved up because people on fixed income or fixed lease rents, they were sitting there suffering the consequences because of that, and all of a sudden, they started raising it when it leases expires, right? The property owners will dismiss many of them and reset, and gee Lord, and the rest will demand a wage increase in order to live as before. In this manner, that a considerable increase of money from the mines increase consumption, and by diminishing the number of inhabitants, greater expenditures result by those who remain. Everybody else now has to pay a higher cost of living to live there because of the price increases that had taken place from the new money that poured in, and all the working class individuals couldn't live there anymore, and they had to say goodbye. It's over and over again. It's the same story that's being told. See, the reason why I bring this up is because once you see it, once you recognize it, you can now make appropriate decisions for yourself based on the underlying economic forces that are really playing out. Because most of the time, we are going to think, hey, who did this? They did this. I love they did this, right? I love they did this when Cantillon was like, hey, man, they are going to do this to you, right? So it's not like they did it. They who are in the position of they understand what it is that's happening here, and they know how to position themselves accordingly for it. Now, whether they know it outright, that it's through the description in which that I am describing, they have an inside understanding of these economic forces and how to position themselves for it, where most people will then look at them and blame them, right? So how is it you're supposed to position yourself if you're blaming them for the problem when they're like, hey, I position myself to deal with these underlying economic forces? People say you created the underlying economic forces. You can't. You can only they can only exist in the fashion in which that you are now positioned yourself to deal with them. Like most times when you think about gold standard and the removal of gold standard, a lot of times when you understand how it is that the gold standard was separating the rich from the poor, how it was that that was about ready to come to an end and equilibrium was going to take place, totally down for it. Like I am down for that equilibrium to happen. I'm ready to see it. But to know that most people were going to suffer the worst consequences of their imagination could ever possibly come up with, as that gold would have to leave the United States and we would fall into pain and misery and poverty as a result of it, they instead switched to a completely fiat currency, which is ever increasing amounts of new money coming in, which means like an endless mine, like an endless mining operation. It doesn't change the economic forces, it just expedites the problems. The economic forces are still there, separating the rich from the poor. The ability for them to concentrate wealth is now overwhelming. We don't have to accept the fiat currency, but we do, right? So knowing that there's underlying economic forces that are playing out right now that will always, always concentrate the wealth into the hands of a few, we must position ourselves accordingly for it. Right? The working class individual is not coming back to have any kind of reasonable living here in the United States. It's not going to go down that road anymore. They can try, they can subsidize, they can intervene, they can do all the stuff to try and make it happen, but ultimately the same thing is going to play out. Right? When the overabundance of money from the mines has diminished the number of inhabitants in the state accustomed, those who remain to excessive expenditures, everybody there has to have the higher standard of living. It's raised the prices of farm products and wages, farm products and wages, I wonder what that means, for labor and high levels, and ruined the manufacturers of the state. Geez, I wonder about those soy farmers. You guys want to read this Cantillon essay and understand what's going on to you? Here we go. Of the state by the purchase of foreign products by property owners and mine workers, the money produced by the mines will necessarily go abroad to pay for the imports. This will gradually impoverish the state and make it in a way dependent on foreigners to whom it is obligated to send money every year as it is extracted from the mines. The great circulation of money, which was widespread in the beginning, ceases. Poverty and misery follow, and the exploitation of the mines only appears to be advantageous to those employed in them and the foreigners who profit thereby. Think about it. 10% of the people are doing better than 50% of the consumption. Why? Because they are the only ones who are closest to the mine. Everybody else is now getting circumvented away from the economy. You just simply don't matter anymore. Cantillon described it. Let me read it again. This will gradually impoverish the state and make it in a way dependent on the foreigners to whom it is obligated to send money every year as it is extracted from the mines. Remember, as it is extracted from the central banking system. The great circulation of money was widespread in the beginning, but ceases, and poverty, misery will follow, and the exploitation. See, poverty and misery amongst the working class people, right? The exploitation of the banking system appears to only be advantageous to those employed in them, right? And to the foreigners to whom it is profiting by. This is why like the working class is just simply irrelevant in this game anymore. Once you see it, it's just like, it's sad to say it. I get it, guys, right? I don't like saying it outright because it's just kind of almost hurtful and negative and all this other stuff that comes with it. But if you try to sugarcoat it in anything else or try to figure out who it is that you can blame, you have to see it from these underlying economic forces and realize there's no one to blame, right? The blame is in us accepting the fiat currency. We shouldn't accept it. Here, end the Fed, yo, right? End the Fed. Get rid of it. Let's go back to a silver and gold standard and watch us fall immediately into poverty and misery as our entire standard of living would collapse as we buy everything from foreign production. You know, I heard something of the oddest economic term in my entire life come out of the administration when he said that China is the cheap ripper offerer. I thought that was funny. I've studied economics for a lot. I've never heard that economic term before, but apparently there's some economic term called cheap ripper offerer. And the cheap ripper offerer is using their time, their resources, their energy, their people, and everybody's wonderful experience here comes from a foreign production that we are now paying for with an empty paper promise to pay into the future with more empty paper promises. Who's the cheap ripper offerer? Right? I mean, I just love that. When I first heard that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we get all this wonderful stuff from all over the world, and what is it that we're really paying for? Like, what is it we're paying with? Not like, paying for it, not like empty paper promises to pay with more empty paper promises into the future. That's it. They're like the United States isn't getting ripped off. Think about that. You know, I mean, it's not going to last forever. We should enjoy it while we can. All right, how far are we into this? 20 minutes. I think that's a good, nice little rant for you guys. You know, I think it's so funny. People are like, man, I ain't got time for a 45-minute video. And I think it's all in the very beginning anyway. Thank you for this super chat. Let's go check that out. We got Millennial Diligence. I love it. $4.99. Thank you so much. Happy Saturday, all. Simon, what's your favorite index fund ETF, like the VTAX or the VFIFX, as a targeted retirement fund? Thanks for the show, sir. Wow. Yeah, I think you probably understand that a little bit more than me. I don't really kind of go into much trading or investments or stuff like that, especially on this channel, because I don't really want the channel to be an investment channel. I don't like, that's up to you. Like, take the information and invest with it or whatever you need to do. Use it in conjunction with the other tools that you're doing. I'm not one to say, hey man, I know how to invest. This is how I position myself to do it, and all this other stuff. I'm not trying to deliver messages like that. I mean, as far as like an ETF, I own one ETF right now, and that's the total market ETF from Vanguard. It's very slow. It doesn't do much at all. That's the only one that I'm in right now. So if you're like to ask me like which ones I'm exposed to, that's it, you know. And so anyway, like, I could probably do a conversation with you, like a private call or something like that, to if you wanted to like break down my opinion on it. But for the most part, I just don't really talk about like investments and stuff like that, or you know, how to position yourself with that kind of money. Knowing that you have to do it and the reasonings behind it, I think that's really important, right? Because intuitively, deep down inside, once you see it, once you got the subconscious understanding within you that this is how it works, that there's underlying economic forces, that you can blame government, but really the government is the symptom of the problem. And once you see that, once you see those symptoms out there, you actually feel sorry for those who are then pointing the finger at politics because they can't see it the way you see it. Like, you can see it like almost like in two fashions. Like, you can look through it through the lens, you know, like here, I'll look through it at a political lens and see it how everybody else is seeing it. I can look through it through this mainstream media narrative, and I can look through it through the Cantillon effect, because this is describing underlying economic forces. And if you can join those with Gresham's Law and Triffin's Dilemma and the bullwhip effect and all the other ones that are out there, then pretty soon you start to recognize how it is that these things play out, and now everybody is having to operate differently. Like, everybody has to operate differently. That's all there is to it, right? And some people might be very similar in their operations. Moving on. This will Miles, this will piss you off. I rent a hang for $350 a month. By the time I pay everyone with their hand in my pocket, I keep $84. Pico's trading desk, $2. We should do an economic strategy video. See, this is cool. See, this is where I think it would be a lot of fun because then, like I really honestly think at times people assume that economists are investors or that investors are economists, right? Like I think they kind of overlap these two, thinking that they're the same thing because they talk similarly and they look at the same things and they kind of refer to a lot of the same stuff, but they're not really doing the same thing. They're not in the same mindset. Like I think about the flow of money and how that works and what's going to happen with trade trade issues, or I don't, you guys hear all the stuff that I don't even know how to describe what it is that I look at. But other like investors are looking at companies, they're looking at like the numbers within the companies, deciding whether or not these numbers are worthy of them to deploy money into that particular stock or something like that. I have no idea how that works. I mean, it's just like I really don't. Thank you guys so much for those super chats. You guys are awesome. They separated us cutters from the loggers back in the 1980s because our workers' comp was so damn high and wages haven't gone up much since. In the 1980s, I was making $25 an hour to fall timber. Wow. All right. As you know, brother, we put out our 5 free daily picks. Never financial advice, but our batting average is pretty good. Maybe Webb was right with this great taking book. Well, I mean, it would be fun. Like you could probably take and understand these economic forces in a way that makes them incredibly scary. Like people call me a doom and gloomer, but really, if I was to turn it on, I could I could really just make it super entertaining and triggering and all the other stuff that goes along with it. And people say that I'm doing that anyway, and it's just like, well, I don't know, maybe that's just my natural being. But whatever. I think that the stuff that I deliver is truly informative. I think it's helpful and I think it's useful. And I honestly believe that when people have looked at things like the credible threat theory, if they could, it's deep and it's hard to really internalize for what it is, because we have been so conditioned to believe in such a way. The mainstream media doesn't deliver information in a way that we can truly absorb what it is that's going on. They deliver us information that they want us to hear. And ultimately, when you are hearing stuff that they want you to hear, it makes it difficult to understand what it is that's going on elsewhere. It's like once you get the message, it's like that's it. That's what you got. And then it makes it, you got to actually break it. You got to break that barrier of what it is that's been delivered to you all your life, or even just since you started studying or something like that. And then you have to take on a whole new understanding and a whole new belief system. And that is very difficult to do. It's like you literally have to force yourself into it. Many times, by the time, like if you're young, it's not too bad. Like if you're if you're in your 20s, it's like, hey, that's easy enough. But if you're getting into your 30s, you're really starting to get set in your ways, and then by the time you're 40 years old, it's almost impossible to break it. It's like literally almost like you can even know it, study it, research, have it in your memorize, do all that other stuff, and it still doesn't sink in. And what I mean by that is it's still your internal belief, what you really truly believe, didn't change. And that is so hard to break. You can look at it and say, okay, I'm going to look at it through the lens of the political. I'm going to look through this and I'm going to look through it like that. And you're going to, do all this research and study and stuff like that. But then you really, truly believe something different. This is for anything. It doesn't have to be economics. It can be anything out there. But it's the same thing that's happening. It's the same energy. right? So if your true belief system is something different, then that's what's going to end up following. That's what's going to end up presenting you with your experience. That's going to create the illusion that you have, because we're all experiencing this illusion from our thoughts and feelings that we are carrying. I know that's kind of crystal gripping and hippie to believe, but that's really what it comes down to, is what it is you truly believe is the experience that you get. So as people truly believe that politics is ruining their life, I guarantee you it will happen. It will so happen. Right? I know this because this is what happened to me. It was when I truly believed that I could do something different with my life, or that I had to. It wasn't even that I thought I could. It's just that I thought I had to. Right? I really thought I had to. It's just like, you have to do this. If you don't do it, you're going down this path is going to lead you to hell. Turn around and go the other way. You have to do that. Right? And it was like, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So it was just like, okay, all right, don't drink anymore and show up every day for work. Okay, gotcha. All right, start paying off debt. Gotcha. All right, it was just like, do the next right thing. Okay, gotcha. So what? Where's my glasses? So what? Infamous NYC. What was that? Did I miss it? Oh no, I lost the message. Where'd it go? Oh, we'll go infamous here. SP, it becomes a simple war among the people and divide and conquer. Hit the like button. Yes, please do. Let me go back up here a little bit. Okay, let's cruise down to the bottom. All right, Brody says, hey, Dishes. Yeah. Everybody's watching right now. Dishes has a channel, an ASMR channel, where she does the chores and vacuuming and dishes, and it's a fun channel. She's got quite a few subscribers. Go over there, show her some love, and hit the subscribe button. All right. It's so expensive to buy land in UK. I just want to buy a land and live off the land, but it looks impossible. All right. Parveen? Is that the name? Parveen Kumar? Well, here's the thing. Like, if you look at it in that fashion, then it's probably going to be that way for you. You have to really think about it in a different way. You have to think, okay, well, I know that I can't do it the way that I am doing it. Like, I can't use my day job to be enough in order to acquire the land that I'm wanting, right? So therefore, you have to have a different mindset. What is it that I can do? Can I do a side hustle? Can I do a side job? Can I start a business? Can I do online sales? Can I do something else along with cutting back on those expenses? Because once you start moving into that mindset, and I don't care how small it is, like right now, think about it. What else do you have to lose, right? You can't get the land, so let's do something different, right? And now if you go into the mindset of like, okay, let's see if I can save some money, and let's see if I can earn some extra money. Extra money, the money beyond the money you're already making. So extra money and saving money. And it doesn't need to be that much. Like, who cares if it's just a couple of bucks? Literally, like, who cares if it's just a couple of bucks? It's the energy and the mindset that you go into. Because once you start thinking and behaving in this way, I guarantee you, you will find other ways. You will find other ways to save, and you will find other ways to earn money. And you will do this almost as if it was like a hobby, right? Almost as if it was like a game. And once you make it a game of fun, like, haha, I got an extra I don't know, I earned $2 doing this silly thing, right? I signed up for this and got $50. Whatever. It's just like you make a game of it, and you start figuring out how it is you get into the flow of money. And again, people have this idea that it needs to be this huge number, and that's the problem within it. Because if you don't achieve that huge number, then you feel very disappointed. But if you don't have the number as being like, it needs to be this huge number, like, you can have a goal that says, I want $2 million. Okay, great, that's awesome. How do you earn $2 million? Well, you got to earn at least one. Right? I mean, once you earn one, then you can earn two and four and then onwards, right? But you got to learn how to earn at least one. So if you get into the position of earning just $1, you'll learn how to earn two and then four and then onward. Same thing of saving money. If you figure out how to save $1, you'll figure out how to save two. And then you start building on that, and you just keep building it in those directions. And then pretty soon you will have the ability to put the money down on the land and have the business that you're looking for, or the operation that you're looking for, or just the isolation and getting away from everybody that you have been hoping for. one way or the other, you have to step into something that is different from what it is that you are doing, because you have to know the day job isn't going to do it anymore, right? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe that's all you need to do is just like really just focus in on just saving, and just a little bit of deployment of savings into a particular position might actually find yourself the ability to get to that land. I don't know, right? But for the most part, I would assume that if, unless you have a business going on, unless you're making a decent amount of money, unless you have some sort of family inheritance, unless you have something else going on in your life, if you're going to go out there and work at a regular average job, it's not going to make it. Like, unless you do something very, very unique, live in your car, like that kind of thing. You like that's because what else are you going to do? Like, they can't change what's happening. That's the scariest part about it all, is that they can't change it. And I know people will argue that. That's fine, right? Go ahead and argue it all day long. There's plenty of college courses and professors who will debate right along with you, and all the people out there on the internet and all the news articles. That's fine. I'm diving all the way back hundreds of years into the economic forces that are creating the situation we are now facing, and you can go ahead and debate that. Right? Because that's what I'm looking at. Everybody else says I'm wrong, and I'm thinking I'm not. I'm not wrong. This is underlying economic forces that have been described from somebody who was describing what he was witnesses from hundreds of years before that. These things are thousands of years old. I'm sure if we were going to the biblical stories, we could probably find out evidence of it there too. In fact, I know I have. All right. Cut your expenses, save money, and buy overseas land to maximize your investment. Military budget, military stay. Common sense, please. All right. China makes land cheap since you can only lease it. I don't want to live on it, and it isn't zoned for housing anyway. I told you guys, as population grows, our daily routine and expenditures become more costly, and another 50 million people to the USA. What would be the cost then? Diamond and Dalio are saying bad things are coming. Well, yeah. I mean, bad things are always coming, right? The worst of it is always on its way. Let me ask you something. Like, I was talking. Here. This is what's funny about it. It's just like, is it really a bad day ever? Like, is it? Like right now, it's overcast. It's not sunny. It was kind of drizzling, I think, a little bit earlier. No, the pavement's not. It's not. It's all dry, right? But it's kind of overcast, and the sun's not out. So it's kind of cool, and I don't know if it necessarily would be an awesome day to be out on the beach. So is this today a good day, or is it a bad day, or is there anything? Is it just a day, right? Because there's no difference when it comes to the economy either. There's no good or bad economy. It's your position inside of it. What is it that you want from the economy? And you'll say, oh man, it's a bad day. And I was just like, well, to go picnicking on the beach, it might be, but it's a wonderful day to go duck hunting. You know, I mean, if you're a duck hunter, you know, blowing and windy and cold and nasty, man, that's the delight. That's the place that you want to be. And so when I think like, man, what is it a day means to anybody? It's all in the meaning that you have given it. And the same thing when it comes to the economy. It's all about the position that you have taken with it. That's why I don't find, like, you know, these people, this Dalio and, you know, Diamond and everybody else out there is just like, oh man, you guys got to watch it. It's going to be a really bad time. And I was just like, yeah, for the people who haven't positioned themselves, which is usually the people who have been listening to them, then Diamond and Dalio. They're the people who are going to suffer the most of it because they've been listening to these people and taking their guidance and their beliefs instead of trying to understand it for themselves, because nobody is going to understand it better than you can. Like, you're on your own. There's other people who can kind of give you some idea of what it is that's happening out there through their lens, through their position, but they have a total different thing going on. If you are broke as hell and you have no skills and you're 35 years old and you're trying to figure out how it is that you're going to make it in this world, it's going to be very difficult from somebody who grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth with a lot of education, who ended up getting laid off or fired or suspended, whatever, kicked out. They have something totally different going on. Like this person, like, they went bankrupt. This person has no chance of even getting credit. There is no way that these two people share the same economy. I don't care. Like like they are not sharing. They might go into the store and they may be able to purchase the same bag of chips for the same price. Outside of that, there is no similarity between their economies. And I know that's kind of a weird analogy to look at, but when you see it that way, it makes a lot more sense. Like I've seen people who have said something about like, oh, the homeless, they could just go get a job. And I'm like, no, they can't. No, they can't. They can't just go get a job. All these people who say, oh, they can just go get it. Well, they can find something to do. You're right. I believe that. But they can't just go get a job. They can't leave their stuff behind. They don't have the resources in order to even get set up to even get employed. Like, it's just like a lot of these people, they are so far down the line that is to return to any kind of sense of normalcy. Think about it, how hard it is for just the average person right now who has made sense of their life without the trauma impacts of abuse and drug abuse and, all the deterioration of life that comes with it. And, think about how hard it is. Like these people are like, they don't have a chance. I mean, they have a chance, but it's, pretty slim. Even the average person who is paying attention to what they are doing is going to have a very difficult time making this work. Once you see it, that it's that way, now you can do something about it because there's so many options right now. I mean, think about it. When I was a kid, like I always thought about day trading and what it would be like to day trade and stuff like that. And I thought, like when I say a kid, when I was in my 20s, right? Late 20s, the internet was getting really popular, the dot-com boom and stuff like that. And I thought, man, that's the stuff right there. That's how everybody does it. That stuff was just brand new getting into existence. It was never available before. Right? And then even then, it was very difficult for the average person to take part in that. Yeah. It was $10 trades in and out. And so if you're like trying to invest just a little bit at a time, it was way expensive. Now you can buy, Robinhood, $5 purchases. You can sit there and take every single day, buy $5 worth of stock for the rest of your life, and just probably load up really well if you started when you were 18 years old. That was something that was never available before. Think about that. That is available today. What does that mean for the average everyday person? It means a huge, huge opportunity if they take it. Most people won't. Most people won't. They'll instead blame politics for them not having a decent life when they could literally go and just say, man, I'm not going to go and buy weed. I'm going to go and buy Bitcoin. I'm not going to go and hang out at the bar. I'm going to go and buy a dividend paying stock. I'm not going to go and waste my time chasing some pleasurable experience. I'm going to go and study how it is that I can get a business started. Right? And then you find that people go like, oh man, they're greedy. And I think to myself, greedy, disciplined? Well, where do you draw the line? It's like, where do you draw the line on that? It's just like, so you went and partied and you have nothing left, and now you're broke ass, and you want to call some rich individual out there who was very disciplined throughout their life with businesses and opportunities and taking in the idea of becoming a landlord, and you want to call them greedy. And I'm thinking to myself, you partied. Right? Like you may not feel like you partied, but you partied. You enjoyed your experience in a way that didn't leave you with any money. So you partied. These people didn't. Maybe they did party and they got the money too. They worked extra hard for their partying abilities. But you partied. Those people didn't. They're greedy, and you're suffering the consequences. Interesting. Yeah. This is. I mean, I see it. Like I see it all the time. I don't blame anybody for the bad mistakes that I had made. Right? I made some really, really bad mistakes all the way up until my 40s, and then I did some bad mistakes even after I was 40s, trying to figure it all out. I own all that. If I didn't own it, how would I ever figured it out? How would I have ever learned? That was my fault. Every drink, every beer, every payment in debt, everything. It was all mine. I did it to myself. All right. And it took a lot to get out of that. It took a lot to get out of that. Right? I do almost regret not buying Bitcoin at $7.63, but I still think this is all irrational exuberance. Well, Miles, I could agree that it probably feels that way. And, I mean, I agree. I wish I bought it cheaper too. But here's the thing, like I have been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin for a very long time. Right. And now I took 4 consistent years of buying into Bitcoin. I don't know, started about 5 years ago, I guess, in which that I had been like literally putting $50 a week. Sometimes I would skip a week, but for the most part did it, and it absolutely killed it. It absolutely killed it in as far as dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and how much of a return I got. I didn't want cryptocurrency to be the biggest part of my portfolio. I didn't like, I wasn't, didn't, had no intentions to do that. None. But that's what happened. Right. So it's like, okay, so you can want something else, and then the universe says, well, we got other plans. Thank you for participating with our game. Right? Because I didn't get it from the direction that I thought I was going to. It came from crypto, and I'm like, even the dramatic drop in cryptocurrencies, it still doesn't matter. It's still the significant portion of my portfolio. And again, I didn't mean for that to happen. I didn't. It's just because of how much it went up. So I just look at cryptocurrency in a much different fashion. I think to myself, man, there's not that much Bitcoin out there. Not for the entire globe. There's only going to be so much. Right? Like, it's just like there's a limited supply. And once you have it in your possession and you don't let it go, what could be the other outcome from it other than a concentration of this stuff? So, I mean, I'm not wishing or hoping or dreaming or praying or even caring what happens to it because I never really had any intentions to begin with. But it seems to be working out pretty well. So I'll just continue to, let it go and not care one way or the other. Just be good either way because I really am, I truly am, And we'll just keep dollar cost averaging to it because that's what Lynn Alden told me to do all those years ago. And that advice worked. Dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Doesn't matter when you start so long as you do it for 4 years. That's what she said. Worked. Totally worked. You don't understand BTC. It is a money creation tool. If the dollar gets devalued because of more dollars, that's more dollars chasing Bitcoin. Walmart and Cantillon and Musk. Invest only in business bankruptcies, liquidated inventories, government surplus auctions. BTC is just like any other well-valued stock by the population. A new kind of crypto. I don't know what other cryptocurrency could ever do what it is that Bitcoin can do or won't be able to do into the future using a secondary layer system. It's like, to me, there's nothing else but Bitcoin. Everything else is secondary to it. Right? And don't get me wrong, like I own a few altcoins, and I'm not trying to say that the other coins out there don't have good value to them in the sense of what it is that they are providing for their, you know, for their projects, essentially, like what it is that they are trying to service, try to do. I'm not trying to say that they're, worthless in that sense, but ultimately, like, they really can't, there's really nothing that they're doing or can't, that a secondary system can't do, with Bitcoin. So to me, it's just like Bitcoin's it. There's nothing else. Man, we got a lot of people watching. 389 with 117, 118 likes. Continue to hit that like button. We're 50 minutes into this video. If we jump it up and get it up over 400 people watching and continuously watching, we'll stick around for a little bit longer. Otherwise, the family wants to go to Savi Island to go to the pumpkin patch. I haven't paid attention to the markets in April. Has anything changed with monetary policy in the Are they still trying to increase inflation expectations? I don't know if they're necessarily like, I mean, the inflation expectations are elevated and they seem to be persistent within the mainstream media narrative. The idea of tariffs, more tariffs coming, the promise of tariffs and deterioration within the economy, I would certainly think that that would elevate the inflation expectation. So if you're asking if that's what's going on, yeah, that seems to be the case, but it's not within the consensus statement anymore that that's what they're attempting to do. However, according to Jefferson's speech that came out October 3rd, a week ago, a little over a week ago, in that speech, he was talking about inflation being persistent for the next couple of years. So, you know, more inflation, yeah, because it's going to raise the neutral interest rate, which makes the economy less restrictive. They're not like interest rate adjustments isn't the tool anymore. That's why I think is awesome about having studied this as much as I have, is that now I don't even look at interest rate adjustments being the monetary policy. It's their deployment of the words, the expectation of the markets of what it is that they plan on doing with interest rates going into the future, because that is what's changing and altering the asset prices and the easing or tightening of financial conditions. It's not the adjustment of interest rates, but the belief of what it is that's going to happen with that. That's what's doing it. All right. And that's so hard. Again, you have to shatter your original belief system, which, again, if you're like, over 40 years old, it's probably going to be impossible unless you just constantly study and research and just put it into yourself that, man, there is a different way that's happening here. So if you're young, man, it can totally make sense. But if you're older, it's difficult. Yeah. Me never want to leave the house. BTC has lost its way. Now it's just an extension of the NASDAQ. BTC is pinned as now pension funds and investment capital hold it to hedge the market. Think you'll check out your vid on that speech. Yeah, it was I haven't broke it down yet, which I should do. I don't know if I can do it tonight. Um We'll try and do it this weekend. We'll try and break this. I've been promising you guys that one for a while now, and it really needs to be broken down, so we'll discuss it, but I haven't broken that one down yet. Oh, I've been promising it for like a while now, so we'll try and get it done this weekend. I may just end up in the middle of the night doing it, and then. Sir Educated Economist, do you know anything about the Cantillon and his contribution to economics? I don't. Uh, to me, it's just numbers on a page and you pinch. How do you get your money out fast at same exchange? At some exchange. Yeah, but like that's everything. That's everything. The only thing that doesn't have that sort of like, see, people say that all the time. I was like, well, yeah, but then how do you get your money out? And I'm thinking, well, nobody ask me that when I told them that I had stocks. They just assume that I can. All right? Like, it literally, they just assume, like, even, like, nobody says anything about that when I talk about my cash in the bank. They just assume that I can go get it. I don't. I literally don't assume that I can get any of that stuff. Right. Now, at any given time, the idea that it's going my like, expectation that I'm going to be able to do it is there, yes. But I already know that there is a possibility that I could show up one day and that it's not going to be like nobody's going to be there. It'd be like, where the hell's my money? Like I know that's a real possibility to occur. The likelihood of it pretty low, but I know it's a possibility. The immediate to have somebody say, well, how do you get your money from Bitcoin? I'm like, how do you get your money from a stock? All right? Same thing. This is like, same question. Mm-hmm. All right. Canada, new policy on crypto. If you earn on crypto, 40% goes to government. What the F? Don't sell it. Borrow against it. Don't even need a bank account anymore. To me, it's just so weird with that. All right. Back through some of the messages here, some of the chats. Well, let's cruise. Okay. HOOD has getting shattered, shadier, and shadier the bigger they get. All right. Well, this was fun, guys. How many people? We got 354 people watching with 143 likes, 56 minutes in the video. I think it was a really good one. Honestly, to understand the economic forces is by far the best way to learn how to deal with the economy, deal with your position. Knowing these underlying economic forces have been described hundreds of years ago, this is the way that you can really change the way the belief system has been abused by the mainstream media and the powers that be in order to essentially enslave you. Because, like, once you are hooked on them, once you are hooked on the belief that they are responsible, then you are expecting their leadership to do something. And if you then internalize it for yourself and take ownership of it, you can realize you can make them irrelevant in your life. And that is the coolest freedom that you can ever get. It's hard to see it until you have achieved it. But once you start going down the path, it becomes very obvious on how this occurs and what it is that you need to do. Not everybody's going to want to fly in private airplanes and do all that. Some people want to live on a farm and raise goats, and that's their whole, expectation that they want for their entire existence, and that's cool. Everybody's going to have something different. To understand what it is that you need and you want, and knowing that it's going to be unique to you, this is the way that you figure this out on how to achieve it. Nobody's going to know it better than you. Once you see it, once you get it, man, it's just like everything becomes available. All right. There are other tools you can use to pay any bill with crypto now. Hello from Manitoba. How do you say that? Manitoba, Canada. I'm terrible with words and names I don't recognize or don't know, I guess I should say. The private airline business is booming. I have firsthand experience. Yeah, and see, well, that's not a surprise because of the separation between the rich and the poor. You're going to find the high-end luxurious experience is going to continue because the flow of money goes up to them, right? And they have no other choice but to just enjoy the hell out of it. And as they spend it, they are doing more and more and more of the consumption out there because they are concentrated more and more of the wealth that is possible. Poor people don't have money. They don't keep money. The money flows up to the rich. That's why they're poor. Like, I know it's sad. It's not, I'm not trying to be mean, right? But if poor people knew what to do with money, they wouldn't be poor. They would be rich. They don't know what to do with their money, so the rich people get it. Yeah, it's just like, That's it's just an important. Like if you don't have it, who does? Right? I mean, what happened to my money? I done spent it. I put it into beer and booze and parties and whatever it was and good times and unfortunate consequences and whatever it was that had happened to me. But I don't have it anymore. Who does? And the guy up there going, "Oh man, I got a huge asset portfolio. Oh, man, it just swells every minute of the day, doesn't it? I can't even spend this stuff fast enough." That's what happens to it. It went to those guys. Uh, is that a 98 Chevy? It is. Shoot, it's a 97. God, that was something else too. Everybody like making fun of me for driving the new truck. Most of you guys know it's my dad's truck, but I just loved it. Some of the comments. Alright. Most people will never go down this path, though. Too much learning for most. Well, I know, I know, all right? That's the problem that we now face. What do you expect to happen? What do you expect as a result? 80% of the people failing. That's the result of it. Right? If they, excuse me, if they, if they understood in a clear fashion what it was that was taking place from the time that they were 18 years old, I guarantee you they would not have made the choices that they have to put them in the position that they are in at 40. They would have done something far different. Um, it's just it's just how it is. Nobody learns these secrets. They don't teach them in school. And for the most part, if you listen to anybody who seems to be educated or smart on it, they don't describe it like this. What I am describing is delivered from the working class to the working class so that they can position themselves accordingly for it. I don't know what it is that the rich people could possibly do with my information. If they are like, if rich people are watching this to get information, I'm sure it's for the lumber portion of it. And a lot of people watch it because of my perspective on the work, from the working class. But ultimately, I'm trying to be useful and helpful to the working class individual so that they could get a better understanding of what's happening out there in order to position themselves. I don't know how many times I've said it. Right? Like that's my mindset. That's what I'm doing. That's what I want to be helpful with. Right? That's the position I'm in. This is what I'm doing. It's not easy. I mean, every day I think about different ways of how it is that I could possibly earn some other money out there. What it is that I could be dedicated to and stick with. You know, that's the thing. Like it takes consistency and dedication. If you have no time available to be dedicated and consistent, then like you have to refine what it is that you're doing. Right? I mean, I don't know what else to say. But most people have plenty of time on their hands. Plenty. And there's plenty of time to study. There's plenty of times to take on skills. There's plenty of time to research what it is that you can do in order to change what it is that you're doing with your money, like where to invest kind of ideas. There's all kinds of things that you could be doing with your time that'll lead you down the right path. What makes you think 80% is doomed? Well, it's because of the entire video that I just described. Anyway. So, back when the United States was a manufacturing powerhouse and we used to produce the world's greatest stuff, we would send out that stuff to the world and the world would send us their money and we raised our standard of living. And when we raised our standard of living, we caused the increase of consumption, which ended up causing a bunch of foreign products to start moving in and ever increasing amounts of domestic manufacturing to leave. This, I don't know how many times I have to say it. There's no return. Like you have to think 20% of the people right now are doing like 70% of the consumption. 80% of the people are literally participating in such a small, insignificant amount of the economy, both in production, both in economic activity. They're literally the only thing like we really do is drive the bus, flip the burger. We don't do anything else. We don't have any kind of like we're not gonna provide any kind of boost to the economy, not with our efforts. We're just simply like, even if we were to double up our efforts, and increase our consumption, we're just gonna, like, we're just such a small amount of the consumption. We'd be like, whoop, okay, here we went from, like, 30% of the consumption to 35, 40%, woohoo. It's not headed that way, right? The concentration of wealth is moving up to the top, and the top concentration of wealth is doing ever increasing amounts of the consumption. This is something that Cantillon described. And now the results of that is that the lower end of the people suffer with ever increasing amounts of difficulty in trying to maintain their standard of living. And that would be like 80% of the people. So, all right. If you're not able to consume, sorry, you don't matter anymore. And that's really, I don't like saying it out loud because it sounds so negative and horrible. But that's really we're a consumer-based economy. If you're not a consumer, then go flip a burger, right? That's, you're going to have to be part of the service industry. Go drive a bus, go deliver a package, right? Go load up some 2x4s. That's what else you got, and then even with that, like, even we're going to pay you a good wage. Won't be enough. Right? Good job suck. It doesn't matter. It's like, even a good wage isn't enough to make the payment on a house. And it's like, there's no point. That's why, like, there's no fixing it. To understand it is what you need to do. See, what was it like? Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. In Cantillon's essay, he actually talks about how people will postpone their expenditures, right? Oops. The industrious people who are eager to acquire property will not at first increase their expenditures. Those are the ones. Think about that. This is Cantillon describing a particular group of people. There are industrious people who are eager to acquire property. They will. Hello, B. Come to say hello halfway through. Every time. All right. They will not at first increase their expenditures. I think about myself when it came to the purchasing of this house. I drove a 99 Toyota Corolla, right? I walked to work many times before I even got that car. I kept my expenses incredibly low, and I saved as much money as I could, right? So these are the people who are eager to acquire property. They will not at first increase their expenditures. When the YouTube money came in, I paid off my debt and I saved. I saved as much as I could. They will wait until they have accumulated a large sum from which that they can draw a secure interest income. I have been deploying money since I purchased this house, right? Most people, that would be as far as it, but I did not increase my expenditures. I kept it low. And then I started deploying money into, right, a place in which that I could get a return. So again, this is something that I've been reading in Cantillon's essay, knowing that this is something that I had to do, right? The industrious people who are eager to acquire property will not at first increase their expenditures. They will wait until they have accumulated a large sum from which that they can draw a secure rate of interest independent of their occupation. Once a large number of inhabitants have acquired considerable fortunes from this money, which enters the state regularly and annually, they will not fail to increase their consumption and raise the price of everything. That's the only thing I haven't done, and I have no intentions to. My consumption I keep low. I do actually want to go out and buy a car. I drive Dad's truck, right? It's right here. I've been driving it around for a while because he's out of town and the Explorer's getting the doors worked on. And I've been driving it and I thought, man, this is so nice. I would love to have this. The more I drive it, the less desirable it is, right? It's cool. It's fun, whatever. But it just turns into another vehicle after too long. And then pretty soon it isn't no big deal. It's just like any other car. Right? Knowing that feeling right there, that most people is just like, oh my God, I love the feeling of driving that new car. To me, a feeling is not an investment. It's like I'm gonna invest in a feeling, baby. Right? Like, I hope to get a return on my investment from my feelings. It's just like I don't like okay, I mean, I'm not saying like feeling in your gut about a particular stock. That's not the feelings I'm talking about. I'm talking about the euphoric feeling of driving a new car, right? Like that doesn't have any kind of return of investment on it, except for like, the little endorphin high I guess you get from it. But that's how you do it, right? Be industrious, be eager to acquire property, don't increase your expenditures, wait until you have accumulated a large sum that you can draw a secure rate of interest independent of occupation. That's it. Like that. It's in like three sentences. How hard is that to like? I mean, it's like the simplest guideline that you could ever follow. Right? It is just in hundreds of years ago he wrote this down. Be industrious, and if you're eager to acquire property, don't increase your expenditures. Wait until you have accumulated a large sum from which you can draw a secure rate of interest of income independent of your occupation, and you'll be fine. All right. When 60% are living paycheck to paycheck, they should be happy to get UBI. They shouldn't, because UBI means that there's going to be a rocket ship of inequality that will take place right after that. Remember, if poor people are poor, it's because they didn't know what to do with the money to begin with. And I'm not saying that people didn't suffer under reasonable circumstances. Everybody is different, and I know that there has been, particular events in people's lives that have then put them in the particular position that they are in. But for the most part, people have made bad decisions with their money their entire life because they literally didn't know what to do. They just didn't know. And it's not them to blame, right? But it is something that you need to take aware of. You need to become aware of it if you are one of those people that, man, I have been making bad decisions with my money. Why? Why has that been happening? Like literally the media, the music, the movies, society, and everything else has taught you to be poor. Nobody taught you how to be rich. How many times in class did you hear be industrious? Right? Do not go out there and spend that money. Save it so that you can get a secure rate of interest beyond that of your occupation. How many times were you taught that? Like, drill that every single day. Stand up, put your hand over your heart, look at the flag, and then say that. No, right? Go pay taxes. Show up every day. Be a corporate robot. That's what they taught. That's how they taught the people. You need to factor in the $1 million surgery. Poor people are the loudest ones when it comes to the economics. You just said it. If people can't manage their finance, their government has to step in and do it for them. They can't, they don't. That's the problem. You go and hand a bunch of people UBI, what do you think they're going to do with it? The government will be producing a consumer. That's it. That's what UBI is. Instead of calling it universal basic income to help the people out, they should say, hey, we need to produce a consumer because 80% of you ain't cutting it. Like, we can let the assets grow and we can have elevated interest rates so that the assets of the top 20% have more income and they get the wealth effect and they can spend the money because that's what they're doing right now and they can continue on with that. Or they could try and figure out how to get 80% of the people to start spending money, and it certainly ain't going to come from wage increases. So UBI is the only thing that they would have to offer. UBI would mean that 80% of the people would immediately spend that money, because if they had known what to do with it to begin with, they wouldn't be part of the 80%. They'll take that money, they will spend it, and the top 20% of people will become stupid, stupid rich. And if you don't believe it, just go back and read the Cantillon essay over and over again until it finally clicks, right? Because new money, ever increasing amounts of it, will separate the rich from the poor every time. Inequality happens when new money comes into the system. Very little doubt. People like the idea of UBI because they're so stressed about their paycheck not making it month to month, and they're thinking, man, if I could just have a little bit of UBI, I'd be so much happier, not realizing that at first it'll be awesome. Like, I shouldn't say that it's not going to be good. Like, at first it's going to be super awesome. It's going to be super awesome for people who have first access to that new money. Woo! Good times, baby. But give it over time, it'll fall right back into the conditions that we are in. And in fact, it'll be worse, because it'll be ever increasing amounts of inequality, because the rich will have accumulated all of it, and their assets will be so much more valuable than they are today. And that's just it. Right? If poor people were smart and they paid off their debt, and then they started deploying the money into, cash flowing assets that, have a return to it, then there would be a different story behind the UBI. But that's not what will happen. Right? I mean, it just simply won't. I mean, some people will. But for the most part, unless the government says, here's your UBI, but we're going to take that from you, and what you got going on? Okay, we're going to pay off your debt, and what do you got? We're going to pay off, some of that, and then here, you can use that to buy some groceries, and then what do you got left over? Savings. Okay, you're not going to spend that. We're going to put that in savings, okay? And then if you can do that again next month, maybe we'll start buying you some stocks. But no, you don't have any other choice. If that was to happen, right, government come in and say, hey, we're going to hand you this money, but we're going to tell you how you can deal with it. Okay, well, now you got a whole nother story, right? But that's like total government intervention and tyranny. Like, this is like, that's government involved in your life in the most extreme manners. Who wants that? Like, I don't know. Maybe some people do. And I used to think it was mean to say it, poor people are poor, because they just don't know what to do with their money, and they're going to stay poor because of that. And I used to think that was mean, but that was one of those people. Like, I get it. I'm still feel like I don't really have that much, when I think about like what it is that, some people have out there. I really just think, hey man, I'm just barely cutting it, but I'm in a nice rich area of the country that's really clean and friendly and nice, and it's expensive to live here, but it's worth it. And I'm thinking, well, no, man, I'm actually doing okay, right? Saving a little bit, got, portfolio building, got, side hustles, got income. Hey man, things are going good. Like, I'm that, it's all in the meaning you give it. Everything. Everything is in the meaning you give it. It's all mindset. Absolutely it is. It's all mindset. It really is. The thing was, it was expected to be a success. I don't know what that was. Simon, you said it yourself. We are a consumer nation, so we need to consumers. We don't need people making stuff. We just simply need to get the money out there. So why don't they give us UBI? I think they will. Like, I mean, it's only a matter of time before something like that will take place. It literally, it's just a matter of time. And the selling point of it is going to be like a benefit to the people, but really it's not. It's to save the systems, to save themselves. They have then separated themselves from everybody else. When they manipulate the lower end and with the UBI, like, here, consume all this, right? Here, consume all this, right? That goes right back to them. So now they're playing that game. Like, how do we produce a consumer? Like, our job here and our product is the American people. Now, how do we get them to consume? Because when we get them to consume, they're buying foreign production. and so on. Right? And that's only advantageous to the people who are closest to the money and the people who are bringing in the foreign production. Everybody else is literally just like the worthless eaters, the grinders, the processors, the servers, the I don't know how to describe it, but they're not in a position in which that they can then take what it is that they're doing on a daily basis for like their income, their job, and then use it to acquire what it is that has been believed as the American dream. I'm not saying they can't exist. What I'm saying is they can't exist and then acquire what it is. Like, I want my house and a wife and a car and a retirement and college funds and blah, 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 right? That's not going to come from that regular job anymore. If you want that in your life, you have to do so much more, right? So now the power that be, their job is to figure out how to keep these consumers down here, these like 80% of consumers consuming, and they do it through UBI because they certainly can't do it through their job. Like, they can work and serve and flip burgers and do all that other stuff. They're going to consume a little bit more, but they're not going to consume that much more. The only way to actually increase that consumption with those people is to hit them with the UBI. That's why they're all focused in on the top 20%. Everything that they do benefits the top 20%. The top 20% then consumes. That's where the economy is then found its, numbers that they are looking for. This is why the idea of looking at numbers is so like, it's looking at the numbers makes it very difficult to understand that what they are doing is going to benefit, because what they do is they end up conducting themselves in a way that manipulates the numbers, right? It's kind of like almost like the Cobra effect. You guys know what the Cobra effect is? Like, there was this area in India where there was overrun with cobras, and so the government was like, "Hey, let's put a bounty on these cobras," and it worked out really well. All these people were like running around catching all the cobras and bringing them in for the bounty. But then they realized it was just like, "Holy crap, man! People are turning in a lot of these guys, these cobras, right?" And it dawned on them, "Oh crap, they're farming the cobras, right?" So they were like, okay, well, we got to put an end to this whole bounty thing. I mean, people are just raising these cobras up and just turning in farm, these cobras that they raised. So they ended the bounty, and then all these people who had raised these cobras are like, oh crap, I don't want these things. So they let them go, and now they're like overrun with cobras again, right? So it's called the Cobra effect. It's pretty funny. Well, I had something very similar takes place, I believe, within the numbers. Right. So like as they're trying to achieve certain numbers, all of a sudden the people are manipulating their positions, their flow of cash and everything else in order to manipulate the numbers to make them look the way they want them to. And I know that sounds kind of like, confusing and obscured, but really when you think about what it is that they are using for job numbers and they come out with revised numbers, it's just like people's expectations and belief of what it is that's actually happening out there are not even close to the reality. All right. Heaven is paradise forever, and people who resist dying because of corporal wealth hoarding. Farming numbers. Please think this through. So if poor eaters had a chance to buy all the clothes and food that they need, that would be bad because the rich would get richer. No. I mean, well, I guess if you think that's bad. I mean, is that the meaning you want to give it, deplorable? I mean, that's your opinion of it. It's not, I mean, bad, good or bad. I mean, literally, it's just your opinion on whether or not that's a good or bad thing. Right? I mean, I would assume that most people say, no, the rich getting richer is a bad thing. But then again, they don't really complain about the ability to have all the wonderful experiences here in this country that they get. They don't complain about that. Right? I mean, I'm looking out at homeless people walking down the street carrying beer, talking on cell phones, eating from a government issued card, food card. And I'm thinking to myself, man, there's people in this world who are really poor. They ain't got none of that. They don't get the luxury of a cell phone, a can of beer, and a food card. That's some serious luxurious experience for a homeless person in this country. Now, I'm not saying every homeless person gets to experience something like that, but that's the experience of some of the homeless people. That's not like, that's a pretty luxurious environment to be in. Right? I don't think people necessarily take consideration of the sheer amount of conveniences that are around them. Think about it. Wealth is food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. That's it. People want to put a dollar number on these rich people and say, oh, look, they have all these billions of dollars, and that's unfortunate. We don't have that. And I'm thinking, you have food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. You are wealthy. Why disrupt that? Right? Why make it worse? Why make it better? If you had, like, I mean, I can see why you want to make it better, but what I'm saying is just like, what do you need to do to make that better? Food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. I think, like, if I have a ribeye, I'm good, right? That's what I like. I like a charcoal cooked ribeye. Super awesome. It's not much. Like, right, it's kind of expensive steak, whatever. Right? Conveniences. Like, I have my truck. I have that old S10. My old man let me borrow his truck. I have food at the house. I have my cell phones. I have things. Like, I have conveniences. Like, I have, like, what do I need? I don't need anything. I got my traveling. I got my phone. I got my entertainment. I got the things that I need. I don't need much, right? Pleasures of life. Well, that's all about what it is that you're doing. My wife and I went out and watched the Mariners game last night on a giant screen out in Seaside, and it was so fun watching the Mariners take that game at the 15th inning. That was killer. Great time. Didn't cost hardly anything. I mean, the drive out there was the most expensive part in gas. Food, conveniences, pleasures of life. If that's what you have in your world, in your existence, consider yourself wealthy. Why confuse it? Why try to reinvent the wheel? Why to try to make it something that it's not? Why to try comparing it to other people? That's the worst part. Why compare it to other people? I mean, can you go out there? Can you get something to eat that you really enjoy? That's a third of your wealth right there. A third of it is just being able to go out there and be able to get what it is that you want to eat. How many people take that into consideration? How many people actually take that for granted? That a third of their wealth they take for granted just because of the convenience of what it is that they can eat. That's amazing. Food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. The convenience of what we have nowadays. I watch Uber Eats and DoorDash and people running all over the place doing things for other people, providing services like I'd never seen before. Like, this didn't exist when I was a kid. These conveniences are massive, and they're only becoming more and more of them. To think that this is an inconvenient world, it's not. It's a very convenient world. Everything is run through apps and, like portals or whatever. Like, it's super easy. Everything is just easy to deal with. So now it's pleasures of life. What do you find pleasure in? I found catching bluegill off of the dock of Coffinberry Lake with my kid and a little tiny hand line, one of the funnest things that I had done in a very long time. We laughed and joked about those little fish and caught probably maybe a dozen of them, half a dozen apiece, just sitting there jigging those little worms up and down. What a wonderful time. Pleasures of life is all about your own opinion of experiences, man. This world is easy enough if you just make it easy. Allow it to be easy. Most people try to make it hard, and they don't. And I don't think they realize that they're trying to make it hard at their own detriment. Like, they can make it easy if they wanted to. Just think about what it is that's wealth: food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. Think about how it is that you can position yourself in order to be in the flow to acquire such things. Low expenses and extra money, right? The money beyond the money you already make. It doesn't have to take a stressful experience. You can do it just casually walking through life. Most people don't see it that way. They think they have to stress. They think they have to work hard. If they don't feel the tension of that, then they don't feel like they're actually doing anything. And that's too bad. Because really, the ability to go out there and acquire what it is that you need is quite abundant. This is hard to see it at times, especially if you don't believe it. And believing it is really most of it is just literally believing that it exists. Once you believe it, once you see it, once you feel it for yourself deep down inside it, all this kind of comes naturally. Most people just put up the resistance. It's because of their ego, right? Their ego holds them back. I know. I have a huge ego. My ego tells me, no, it has to go down this particular path. And if it doesn't, you're going to get upset. And when I recognize it, I thought, dang, dude, it's coming back again. Better check your ego. Let it go. Be good either way. Pay attention to intention minus the importance. You're good either way. You start heading down those paths and everything just kind of lines up. You know, it takes time. It takes a while. I mean, you think about it. I haven't drank for over 10 years now. And I just now am really feeling, man, I think I'm actually going to do this. I'm actually going to pull this thing off. 10 years later, I'm starting to feel like, I mean, I kind of always felt it deep down inside. Like, that's the reason why I was able to get here. But sometimes, like, along the way, you get some disruptions in this world and you're thinking, man, I don't know. Yeah. But, again, pay attention to intention minus the importance. Go for it. And everything lines up. Okay, an hour and a half into it. Are we good, guys? We're at 381 people watching, 196 likes. Thank you so much, everybody, for hitting that like button. Man, got quite a few people who have joined in on this live stream. Sacrifice sucks, but it's worth it. Always has been, correct? And that's just the thing. Like, sacrifice what? Like, again, that's like the sacrifice. People are like, well, I have to sacrifice my good time. Well, what does that mean? So you don't go to the party? Like, what is going to the party? Like, what does that do other than make you feel good? And so, like, so what is what's going on there that makes it so important that you're missing out on this grand experience or something? Right? Don't get me wrong, it's fun, but if you can't afford it and if it's not, in the cards to be there, and if it's something that is going to deter your life, cause you to be hungover so you can't pursue and chase the work the next day, then was it worth it? To what? Laugh? Get a few jokes in? Not feel left out? That's probably it. To not feel left out. Depression now wouldn't be as bad as the depression in the 30s. Actually, depression now might be better than boom in the 80s, 90s. Sacrifices whatever is most valuable to you. The Mariners game. Yeah. Did you guys not catch the Mariners game last night? It was great, man. 15 innings. 2-2. Like, I mean, it was like, I don't know, the last 3 innings were just as tense as you could ever possibly imagine, So good. We sacrifice time. That's the toughest part. Yep. Kirk, and you're absolutely right about that. Time is the only thing you'll never, ever get back from anywhere, anytime, from anything. There's no money that you can spend. There's nothing that you can do in order to get your time back. So once it's gone forever. And to know that it's the most valuable thing ever, pay attention to what you're doing with your time. Pay attention to how you feel when you are experiencing your time with other people at work, in your day-to-day operations. Think about that for a minute. Like, if you're going somewhere that stresses you out every single day, you're probably going to carry that with you, and it's going to deteriorate you. Like, people think, man, he died at such a young age. Well, he probably operated in a very stressful experience, right? Because stress will eat at not only at you mentally, but then it'll also eat at your physical health. Like, start messing with the aging process within your internal being. And so to know that that's the case, recognizing it and knowing how it is that you can position yourself in order to deal with it. Sometimes it's literally just changing the way you think about where you are and how you are behaving at your own job. Like, I remember I used to feel very stressed at work. Like, I just felt like stressed because of the stressing, making sure the orders came in on time, making sure that they came in accurate, making sure like all this stuff, the boss, and like, and I would put on all this stress, and I would think about it in a way that like would almost eat at me. And now I just kind of let it go. Like I don't stress about it. It was just like I have faith in the idea that everything that I am doing is going to be okay. Okay? Everything is moving fine. It's going to be accurate. You don't have to stress about it. You place the orders, you've got everything lined up, and if there's a mistake, you just handle it at the time. All right? And so having this, and it's nothing about work change. It's just my thoughts about it. My conscious just being, just my demeanor and everything has calmed as well. Like calming your regulatory nervous system and just being cool. Like, hey, cool, right? Cool like Fonzie, just cool. It makes a huge difference in everything that is out there. Nothing about the external changes. Right? The job is the same, the people are the same, everything's the same. But now my feelings of being at work are not stressed, even though it's still the same work. I just literally change the way that I feel and think about the job that I'm doing. Stay present. Yeah, always stay present. If you find yourself hanging out in a conversation and you're thinking about something else, stop thinking about something else. Literally put the awareness into like your hands and put it on the table and then listen to the person that's across from you. Right? Like, don't think about work. Don't think about what else is going on. Be present there. Right? I notice like a lot of times I get practice with this with my kids a lot, because sometimes the kids are talking about something that is just like, they don't, I mean, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're talking about something like some goofy ass thing that the rest of them were talking about at some point, and it makes it very difficult to just not to just like, you just want to ignore it, like, oh, okay, Babylon, whatever. But those are the times that I have now used as like my practice, like, no, right? Be present, be aware of the conversation, listen to what it is that he's saying, even if it's just some like babbling weird concept or whatever. But it helps, because what it ends up doing is it gives you, being present actually gives you the ability to acquire the things in your life that you were looking for, because you'll be more aware of those opportunities when they show up. If you're not present and you're thinking about something else, you miss out on the opportunities. Whoa, scared me. Are we out of here?
Yeah, it's almost 11:30. Mom wants you to get going.
Oh, does she now? All right. You want to say hi to the fans?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna go off to the pumpkin patch, and that's a couple hours away, I guess. We're
Hour 30.
An hour and 30.
It's near Portland, so.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun. Alrighty, guys. I guess it's time to go. So, what we got? 344 people watching with 217 likes. Thank you so much for hanging out for the live stream, talking about how it is that 80% of them are doomed, but that's okay. We can figure it out, what it is that we need to do for ourselves so that we have a better outcome. You guys are awesome for being here and hitting me up with those super chats. We got $6.99 in super chats, because you guys are always so supportive of the Uneducated Economist. And remember, hitting that like button is the easiest way to support the Uneducated Economist. All these wonderful comments. Come back once the video has been uploaded, comment some more, and share the video. Sharing the video is one of the best ways to get YouTube to share the video as well. Uneducated Economist.
You let me know.